Ellis joined the 5D program probably like a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit longer now. Was already doing some huge things in the business he already had. And since he's acquired a ton of businesses and been growing quite a significant group, which is nice to see. So let me just quickly bring Ellis on. How you doing, Al?
Yeah, good. Thanks, D.
Yeah, appreciate you joining us this evening. So first of all, you're like a world traveler because you're always away, but you're always working as well. So you have a nice balance and act there. I guess a good place to start, for anyone that doesn't know who you are, if you tell us a little bit about you and your group, just to kick this off.
Yeah, so I came into my dad's business 10 years ago. So he had built a really, really good social care company, providing supported living services to adults with learning disabilities and mental illnesses, and residential services as well. And sort of, joined as a support worker. I was in uni at the time, didn't really know what to do. I was working in Spoons on a weekend. No idea what I wanted to do, but knew that I wanted to be in business, but I'm not really sure I quite knew what that meant, to be honest. Joined the business, started working for him, ended up working my way up, fell in love with the industry really and the company. And then he retired 2 years ago. Since then really it's been me, my wife Emma, and then we've got a managing director as well who sort of oversees the day-to-day operations, who have sort of continued what he started, I suppose. And then, as you know, I think wanted to prove to myself that I could do something on my own rather than taking over what he had built. So went and bought a children's nursery, and then, a few months ago in March, bought a second children's nursery as well. So yeah, it's been an interesting 10 years. It's definitely I'm only 27, but it's put some years on me. I'm sure of that. But it's really good. It's a privilege really to be in the position that I'm in and be able to take over a business from your dad is really nice. So yeah.
Amazing. And that you're still only 27. You've done loads already for 27. Well, where's the drive come from? I guess I can guess, but where's the drive come from, especially at such a young age? It'd have been quite easy for you to kind of just manage the company. You was already managing over 100 staff yourself. You fit into a management role very well. It was kind of just, if you worked hard, which you've worked incredibly hard, it was already there for you. Where was the drive to grow it beyond where it already is?
To be honest, I think a lot of it comes from, I still have it now, but definitely in the, more so 12, 18, 2 years ago, I had a lot of imposter syndrome really. It was a business that my dad had started. He had built it to where it was. And then, as the son, you're sort of coming in and you're sort of being promoted through the business, and your dad wants the best for you. But I think there's always a sense of it's not really mine. I think we've had that conversation before, and I've said that to you. And so I think it just stems from a place of, no, I can make it mine, and I can prove to myself, not really about anyone else, but prove to myself that I can do what he did and take it to the next level. And then I had a daughter a year ago, and then that gives you a totally different perspective on things as well. So what started as probably quite a selfish reason as to what gave me the motivation, it becomes something totally different. And you start to think about your kids and then their kids and so on, and how can we create a legacy for the family. And yeah, I think the motivation's changed really, but I think it helps as well being, I never intended on being in social care. That was never my intention at all. When I thought about wanting to own a business, it never once occurred to me that it would be looking after people. But I think I'll always remember, one of my first shifts working for my dad, there was a gentleman who he was on end of life care, and it was one of my first overnight shifts, and he passed away on my shift. And I was like 18 at the time, probably. And that left, that's as an 18-year-old to witness that is quite difficult. So I think that gave me like another sense of motivation as well. The work that we're doing is so important. It comes from a really good place, and the work that we do is always driven by the people that we care for. So I think all of those things together it gives me the motivation to make what we do now better. But I know that what we do for people, we can help a lot more than we already do, and build a brilliant business alongside that. We're very lucky that the two things go hand in hand for what we do. So yeah, a few different things, but I think probably now my daughter puts most of that into perspective for me, and has changed a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a new motivation. What's some of the unique opportunities or challenges, I guess, that you see in the sector right now?
I think there's probably the biggest challenge, and probably will always be the biggest challenge. I'd say two things is one, people. That the business that we're in, they're our biggest resource. Our business is dependent on them. Social care typically, has always had and continues to have a fairly high turnover rate of staff. The challenge has changed really from recruitment to retention. Recruiting people is not as difficult as it was a few years ago, but now keeping hold of those people is really tough. The business that we're in, ultimately, the rate of pay that we can offer our people is determined by the placing authority. They all have different rates, whoever you go to. I think in April this year we had a 3.5% fee uplift from Bristol, and when you look at then what we have to uplift our staffing costs to, it doesn't get anywhere near it. So being able to pay competitively is really difficult, and then you add on all the other things that you want to and need to be able to do as a good employer as well. So retention's definitely that, and funding is the obvious second one really. Is fee uplifts are typically not what you need them to be. We saw better fee uplifts this year than we have done in previous years, but it's still a massive challenge when there's so many other things that you need to be able to do with that capital as well. And then opportunities are probably, I'm going to sound really cliche and like everybody does here, but tech. I think it's, social care has always been a sector where, and early years childcare has always been a sector where we probably lagged behind a lot of other industries in terms of how forward thinking and innovative we can be. But I think that's changing a little bit. I think there's lots of really, really good stuff tech wise, the use of AI, and I mean the proper use of AI, not just a little bit of system automation, real deep artificial intelligence analysis of key data that we collect on a daily basis. I think that will give providers the opportunity to, not replace people, but improve quality of service without breaking the bank through additional labor. You don't pay national insurance contributions on a piece of tech, and that's something that's massively impacted our business across the board. So being able to harness and leverage those things will be a massive opportunity, and I think you'll see the businesses that do that very well, and you'll definitely see the ones that don't.
Oh, definitely. Also, tech doesn't take time off for lunch or go home after work either. So
no, and I spoke to somebody a couple of weeks ago, and they built an AI voice assistant essentially that carries out initial phone screening interviews. And I said to them, can I try it? And I did. And this piece of software rang me and did probably one of the best phone interviews. I've done phone interviews myself, and it was far better than any that I've done. And the data that it gives the provider on the back end of that, after that call, the transcript, the assessment, the analysis of the call, how confident was that person? What was their answers like? That's more than we can do as humans in terms of time, right? And anybody can schedule that call with that piece of tech for 10 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock in the morning if they want to, if they're finishing a late shift. It doesn't take annual leave. It doesn't have sick days. It can happen whenever that person wants it to on their terms, and this piece of tech will be able to do it. And that could revolutionize the recruitment industry massively. Not just an industry itself, but recruitment departments within organizations, how that could benefit them and the company. And then, can we allow those people to focus more on retention rather than recruitment? Can we look at tailoring their roles so they can be out with our people, finding out what we can do? How can we onboard people better instead of taking 20, 30 phone screen interviews sometimes a day, So yeah, massive opportunity. I think there's a lot of businesses that probably need to be more open to the idea of it. I spoke to quite a few people who don't like the sound of it, and I don't know whether that's an industry thing or in general, but I think sometimes you get left behind them if you don't take those.
Yeah, look, I think you have no choice really to use it to be more productive, because would it have been great that it didn't come around? Yes, but it's here, so you may as well embrace it, because you will get left behind, I think. And you've been in management for some years now, managing, like I said, over 100 staff. Because you have multiple sites and different businesses now, how do you balance, centralizing ops versus letting each site have its own independence?
Not very well. That's probably one of the biggest challenges, and something that we speak about a lot, really. How can we be in touch? How can we be visible? But how can we give autonomy and trust to people? I think it's about relationships, isn't it? So one of the first things that we do, whether that be, we open a new service organically or whether we acquire a new business, we don't, our first days, weeks there really aren't, we do a lot of it in the background, but whilst we're with those people, we're not focused on reviewing systems, reviewing processes. We don't convey that message to them. And I think for our first job really is to get to know them and then to get to know us. And I think once you've got that mutual relationship there, which is built on trust and responsibility and accountability, so I think that's really important. If there's two sides to it, isn't there? You want the trust and autonomy, and then you've got to be accountable then as well. If things don't go as planned, you've got to be able to answer those questions as to why. But I think, building that relationship first is probably it's such a simple thing to do, really, isn't it? But I think probably overlooked, and in our earlier acquisitions, we probably didn't do it well enough, where we spent quality time with people to try and understand how they work, what do they think works well. The most recent acquisition completed in April. That was 3 residential homes. When we're just now starting our implementation timeline. But for change, so what's like May, June, July, was 5 months later, now we're starting the process of, right, we know that system needs to change. But for the first 5 months, we really haven't touched anything. And I think what we don't want to do is go in, rip things up. That doesn't give people the feeling that they're valued and trusted. I think it gives people the feeling that it doesn't matter what I do, they're going to change it anyway. So I think just people skills is huge and are often so overlooked. But I think the biggest thing is about relationships with people, and that's really difficult when there's so many. You can't physically have relationships with everybody, but there's certain people within the organization that you need to have that relationship with.
Yeah. And what's mistakes or, I don't know, near mistakes taught you the most on your acquisition journey?
The first nursery that I purchased, we used somebody as part of the deal team that was a lot cheaper than others, and then that you soon understand post acquisition why. There's a lot of due diligence that probably wasn't done properly a lot of things that were missed. I think when we went into the first nursery, we were essentially going to lose part of our registration because the due diligence wasn't done on the actual registration itself. And I think that was going to cost us about close to 100 grand a year. And in a nursery, the nurseries aren't huge businesses. They're fairly small businesses. Revenues, it's not huge. The margins aren't huge. So when you're talking losing 100 grand off the top line, that's quite dangerous really to the business. We managed to keep it, but I think, choosing your deal team correctly is probably one of the biggest things that I learned and am more mindful of now moving forward. I'm not even sure whether I've even got that deal team right still, to be honest. But there's, I think having, again, relationships with the people in that team who you trust, and they know what to expect from you, you know what to expect from them. Not always going for the most cost-effective option, but going for the option that's going to protect you later down the line, and also, actually help you understand that business as much as you need to, is probably the biggest thing that I learned.
Yeah. So I guess that was a change of control clause in one of the contracts.
So the registration, when it was brought to us afterwards, it turned out that one of the registrations was with the person who was the owner rather than the limited company. It wasn't, I think that's why we got away with it, to be honest. It wasn't very, very clear that was the case. But I think if we had done a little bit more digging on it, we'd have probably found that out. The change of ownership was going to impact it, because technically I didn't have the registration with the local authority. It was with the outgoing owner. So managed to get away with it in the end.
Oh, that's some good news. So if you could pick what's one M&A lesson you wish you knew, before you started? Because you went through the process quite quickly. Realistically, you started very young as well, but coming in, you just took action immediately, really. And so what's one thing you wish you knew before?
I think, and I'm not sure if it was something I wish I knew before, but I think it's something that I didn't do well enough. I think I knew it, but probably being, the nursery was the first nursery was the first acquisition that I had done. I'd been involved in others with my dad, but not really. And I knew that you've got to be able to stand your ground sometimes and be able to say no, and not be afraid of saying no to certain things or questioning certain things. And I think I probably was a little bit naive going into that first one and trusted a little bit too much without asking for more evidence of what, the greater detail of some stuff. And I think I knew it before doing that acquisition, but I don't think I implemented it well enough. I think I probably let things go because I was so eager to get that first one over the line. I think it did come very quickly I don't even think I'd finished going through the whole program. And I think, well, me and you went I had a look at a couple, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then, I'd sent like 15 letters and ended up, somebody rang me off the back of one of those letters, and I ended up buying that business. So it was probably a matter of months into starting my own journey into it, really. And then I think you're a bit like a rabbit in the headlights then, aren't you? You find yourself in that position probably quicker than what you expected to. And then everything is just about getting it over the line. Right? I'll agree to that because I want it to happen, and I don't want to upset them, and I don't want the deal to fall out. And so just certain things. I probably should have made sure there was more working capital left in the business to start off with. That was what I initially went in for, but the seller dug their heels in, as they should have, and as I should have, and I didn't. I accepted that it was okay. And it didn't jeopardize the business post acquisition, but it would have made my life a lot easier if there was a bit more money when I went in.
Yeah. And because you took action so quick, what part of the 5D program would you say gave you the most value or breakthrough going? Because, like I said, you just took action you just dived in straight away, and yeah, before you know it, you was in legals.
It was a bit scary, really. I think the biggest thing for me was the group of people who were sort of probably at that journey at the same time as me. So, Mitch was going through his first stuff. Graham was basically there on his stuff, and others. And I think probably the group who walked up Snowdon, to be honest, was that group of people who were there or thereabouts at a very similar stage, and being able to sort of bounce stuff off each other. Not even that, just be, it's quite a lonely game, isn't it? Sometimes, I think having your own business is, it's fairly lonely during legals and the build up to buying a business, but it gets seriously lonely post acquisition. And I think having a group of people who are sort of on the same wavelength and understand what you're doing and the challenges that you'll face, that probably was one of the best things, apart from the information, obviously the knowledge and stuff that you get. I was lucky that I had my dad, which has probably helped me get through it a little bit quicker than most, because he's, he had been through that process himself. But having that support network around you I think you need it when you're doing something. I know you need it more post acquisition, to be honest. Having those people there to support you afterwards. It can be, buying the business is often the easy part. The difficult stuff starts when you get in there, and then you've actually got some work to do to try and improve things or achieve the goals that you want to achieve. That's when the going gets tough, and being able to have people around you who can, in the same position, but can help you and be critical of you when you need people to be critical. And I think that's really valuable.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that Snowdon walk was good. We need a new hill to climb. So
I know that was it feels like ages ago. I'm not actually sure. I can't even remember how long ago it was, but it feels like years ago. But it feels like longer than that though.
Yeah, it was good fun. And then just now on some of the things that you're looking at the moment, how do you personally, or you and the team, assess whether a target company is actually the right fit for your group? Because I guess you're probably quite picky now. You've built quite a substantial group of companies. Like, what's the deciding factor that makes you pick something?
We're definitely more picky now than what we were. Our latest acquisition with the 3 residential care homes, that was purposeful. We wanted that number in the area that we ended up having it. That often makes it a little bit more difficult because you're searching in a smaller pool. But we knew the benefit it would bring to the overall group would be massive. Not just benefit in terms of the value of what we're buying, but later on down the line, we knew how more favourable and more the longer term value that would create. But I think now what I've learned is to surround myself with people who can really bring value to those opportunities. So a lot of the stuff that we're looking at, not just acquisitions, but different methods of organic growth, they require quite specialist people around you to help you, open certain doors to certain people and unlock the potential to sort of execute those opportunities. And so I think when you get to the size that we're at now, you naturally end up in different spaces than what we were sort of 5 years ago. So, yeah, I think I say it again, but relationships with people who can truly value or bring value to your business, whether that be acquisition opportunities. Now we're in a position where, I had something sent to me today where, a development opportunity that would fit what we're trying to do in the next 5 years really well. And you don't have to go searching for those opportunities so much. They more of them get brought to you rather than you trying to find them. And I think then that often allows you to be a little bit more specific about what you want and does an opportunity actually meet the criteria of what I'm looking for, rather than a bit more of a stab in the dark. So yeah, I built a really good relationship with the bank. That's probably the most beneficial relationship I've got. They really look after me, and vice versa. We obviously look after them with the business that we do with them. But then, they open the doors to other people as well, who help us unlock opportunities that we probably wouldn't have access to if we didn't have those relationships. So, that's probably most of my role, to be honest, now, D, is being able to build those relationships with people to allow us to execute the strategic goals that we have. That's mainly what a lot of my work focuses on now.
Yeah. And I guess for anyone that's looking to acquire in the care sector in general, what do you think? Do you have any tips for them, or what's the first step they should take?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me about the industry, and want to looking to get involved in the industry. I think the biggest thing that people miss, that social care and childcare is a heavily regulated industry with very strict criteria in a lot of areas. And I think one of the things that people need to be very, very mindful of is you can't. I'm gonna say you can't. It's very difficult to run this kind of business without any knowledge of the work that you're doing, not just from a regulatory point of view, but from a credibility perspective as well. You need to have people around you that understand the work that happens, understand the regulations, understands the different tiers of people that need to be involved in the organization from a regulatory perspective, but also understand, the challenges that come with it as well. We spoke about staff turnover, and I think that at the moment there's something like 135,000 vacancies across social care in the UK. Overseas recruitment has ended, and it's just going to become harder to fill those vacancies in the next however many years. So it can look like a very attractive industry. It's also a very, very difficult industry, and you need, I said at the beginning, we have a managing director who oversees the day-to-day operations of the business, and I couldn't do what she does. She's far more knowledgeable than me when it comes to care. When it comes to the regulations, I learn a lot from her about the work that we do. And I think you've got to go into, I don't think it's the kind of business that you can sort of try and muddle your way through. You really need expertise around you who understand what you're doing. And we talk about client retention as well. And that often comes with credibility and the service satisfaction, right? And if people aren't satisfied with your service, you'll quickly lose your service users. And if you're working with local authorities, they'll stop working with you as at the click of a finger, and then all of a sudden you're in real big trouble. So yeah, people around you that understand the industry, understand what it takes really to be a highly effective social care provider.
I remember you saying to me as well, maybe about a year ago, about you don't struggle to recruit, which is very high turnover staff kind of sector. You seem to have that part of this boxed off pretty much. What do you do differently to other people? Yeah,
I think in social care, if somebody applies for a job with Expanding Horizons, you can almost guarantee that they've probably applied for the same job with 5 or 6 other care companies, who pretty much probably all pay around about the same. So ultimately, as a provider, what it comes down to is how quickly can you sell your business to that person over the others. And if somebody's offering a more beneficial package, then people will often take that. But if you can speak to that person on the phone quickly, time to hire is probably the biggest thing. Let's get that person on the phone. Let's do a telephone screen with them. From a values perspective, do they feel like they match our organization? do they want us as much as we want them? Because it's a big thing. We want people who want to work for us. If we get them, we have more chance of keeping them. And then how quickly can we bring them into service? How quickly can we get to know them? How quickly can they meet the people that we support? Because that's part of our interview process. And I think if you can do all of that within 3-4 days, you're onto a winner, really. And it's all about speed, because you might be able to offer that person a role subject to a DBS, subject to referencing, before another care company has even responded to their application. And that's really what we try to do. Without compromising the quality of anything that we do, speed is of the essence. We know that people want an employer to get in touch with them quickly. We know that they've applied for more than one care job. That's very typical. And so, getting them in quickly, explaining to them about our onboarding process, how we'll look after them and support them during that time. It's a sales thing as well. I think people often look at it as, how much does this person want to come and work for us? Whereas I think I'm a little bit different, really. And I look at it as, how can we sell our organization to this person so that they want to come and work for us? They might have 3 or 4 other interviews on the table, but let's show them what they'll get if they work for Expanding Horizons. Let's show them the support they'll get during their probationary period. Let's show them the tiers of support that they'll get through the management structure and through our wellbeing team. Let's tell them about our plans for the next 2-3 years, and make them feel like they're part of something a little bit bigger than just being a support worker. And I think that's a big thing that people miss. I think recruitment's not a one-way thing anymore. I think it's a two-way thing, and you've got to be able to sell your organization to that person as well.
Yeah, you're basically being interviewed at the same time. So, and I think it is making your organization as appealing as possible. And, especially if they're hearing that through word of mouth, it's even better. And, people make decisions over those sorts of things too. And also, like I said, you've grown very quickly. You haven't taken much time off acquisition really since you started, whether it's nurseries or, other care businesses. And you also mentioned legacy earlier on. What's your long-term vision for the group? Are you thinking about continuing to build this, or at one point you looking to sell it? It's been in the family for a long time already, ground up. What's the plan?
Yeah, there's no plans to sell it. This is probably not the right way to be, but it feels like it means too much. It means it means too much, and I mean, I don't want to sell it. That's probably what I'd say. I think the vision is, we've asked ourselves a lot of questions really over the last 6 months about what does that look like, and I think we want to grow, but I don't think that growth necessarily means, it doesn't have to mean scale in terms of the number of services that we have. I think we can grow by refining our processes and our systems to give time back to certain people in the organization. We can enter different market to what we do now, but in the same industry. Yeah, I think we can. We've got a 5-year strategy that outlines lots of different goals really around quality of care, people and culture, financial sustainability, growth and innovation, and each of those pillars has 5 or 6 targets that we want to achieve in the next 5 years. And I think just refining what we do and becoming even better at what we do, introducing more tech, but purposeful tech that saves people time in their roles and gives time back, so that we can, if we can save some of our managers 20% of their time, that's a good chunk of hours that they can give back to the people that we support, or they can spend with their team managing them or supporting them in any way or training them, just by implementing bits of tech that we know is beneficial. And then I don't think I'm not actively looking at acquisition opportunities now, but that's probably when the best opportunities come up. And so we won't say no. We're not looking at those opportunities, but we're not really going searching for them at the moment. To be honest, I don't know if my emotional state can take. I do need some time off. I think
Yeah.
Emma would say that. Yeah, it's too much. We had two going through from like September to March, and it was. We're a small business really. There's only 3 of us, or 4 of us at executive level who sort of deal with any stuff like that. So it does get very grueling at times. But those are, if an opportunity comes up, we'll never really turn it down. And I do think that the best opportunities tend to come when you're not necessarily looking for them.
Yeah. And then you mentioned tech a few times there. So with the emergence of AI, what's your number one prediction of how AI will potentially affect the sector that you're in right now?
I think it will increase the expectation of stakeholders. I think it'll mean that commissioning authorities expect more because you can do more from a reporting perspective, from an analysis perspective. So many different ways. I think that as AI becomes more second nature throughout businesses, I think they will expect more from providers. And I think there will be a lot of providers who either choose not to, probably because they don't see the risk, but choose not to adopt it, and therefore struggle and get left behind a little bit. So I think you'll see expectation change because of the capability that differences that AI will bring into a business. And I think that'll place a lot more pressure on providers and companies in this industry. But I think, the stuff is out there to allow you to be able to do the things. We've got a partnership with a university in Wales where we're spending 12 months. They're going to put somebody in our business and they're going to build a bespoke piece of tech, which is AI led really, to allow us to report better, analyze better, and feed back to commissioning authorities better. So the ability is there to go and do it. You've got to look for it and look in the right places for it as well. But I think a lot of providers will not adopt it, and then maybe struggle to meet the expectations of key stakeholders.
Yeah, and also some of the people that you work with in some of your care facilities have gone through trauma. Are you seeing anyone in the sector using AI on decision making based on certain things that may happen? So obviously there and then is quite a quick decision that needs to be made. I guess, not, I know it's hard to say, but rewarding bad behavior and spending the time and effort with those individuals. But are you seeing that anyone using AI to, maybe look back at how decisions could be made, maybe the approach could be made differently, more effectively, and, using that as well to prompt AI really to think, how could that outcome have been better? Is that something that you're doing yet, or do you see other people doing it in the industry?
Yeah, there are people there's lots of stuff out there that, the first thing that springs, when somebody is referred into one of our services, the first thing that we do is go and do a pre-assessment of need. So we'll look at lots of different areas of that person's life, their mental state, their medication, their level of independence with daily activities. And then we get to a point where, based on all of that information, we ask ourselves 2 questions. Are they suitable? Can we meet their needs? And then are they compatible? So are they going to, what difficulties is this person living in this place gonna bring with the others that are already there? Sometimes we can have 6, 7 people in one house, and when there's that many people together who have difficulties managing their the mental illnesses through medication or other methods, then it doesn't always work. And the ability now to utilize the tech and utilize AI during that pre-assessment of need to give you greater insight into that person's behavior, or how often, based on the information that we have or the conversations that we've had with people, how often do they display challenging behaviors? Is that to do with medication? Is that to do with other external factors like environment, or how many people they live with? Are they better living with males or females? When somebody's doing that whole assessment, that's a very time-consuming process, and mistakes happen. People miss things when you're reading through reams and reams of writing and reports. Sometimes you'll have 10 years worth of reports on somebody's life. And so, being able, if you harness the tech to be able to analyze that information, it gives you much clearer decision-making abilities, to be able to answer those two key questions around suitability and compatibility. But there's lots of people doing, less so in the stuff that we do, but bespoke developments that are happening more and more now. You see certain lighting being put in bedrooms so that during winter months, people can better manage their emotional and mental well-being, just through the use of lighting in bedrooms. Lots of rooms will have fall detection tech, but within the furniture that's there, so that instead of a member of staff having to check on somebody every 20 minutes, they'll be alerted when somebody falls, and they can respond to that effectively. Or that piece of tech will be able to say to them, this person's now out of bed, so we can we go and prevent that fall from happening? So there's so many things. I think the way I look at it a lot of the time is, if you think, can you do it? The answer is probably yes. What you can do with the tech that's available now is incredible. It's phenomenal. So if you're asking this, if you ever ask yourself the question, I wonder if we could do that, the answer is probably yes. You just need to find how you can do it and where that tech is.
Definitely. I think a lot of the predictive tech, some of the things you was talking about then, is going to play a massive part in the care sector. Even like, elderly care too. Predicting, based on certain things that are going on in their body, you can predict certain things from happening. And like you said, you can probably predict behavior as well based on certain triggers, just because it picks it up and learns very, very quickly. So I think it's going to be a bit of a game changer, and also get to the root cause of something very quickly, which helps the individual, but also helps the people that they're caring for them as well. So it's definitely going to be interesting. I think over the next probably 5 years, 10 years, it'll probably be a completely different sector altogether, so.
I think that's the tough part about it, isn't it? Is that it's, our sector is already so different than 5 years ago. How much has changed in 5 years is insane. So what's it going to be like in 5 years' time? What's it going to be like in 10 years' time? Trying to predict how it looks is really difficult, and you can't predict how it looks. All you can do is make the most informed decision and assumption about it as you can, by absorbing as much information as you can. And that's why I say that, I think, not just in our industry, but across the board, if you're responsible for strategic direction, really, you have to be brave enough to be able to anticipate changes and then be able to take action on those changes. Otherwise, you just miss out, and everyone around you will do it, and you'll be the ones not doing it.
And okay, one last question. You're pretty much, you lead the company, you execute on the vision, you make sure everyone is doing what they need to be doing, and overseeing the company itself. What do you think? You can give more than one, but if you can only pick one, what's one thing you think makes a good leader in an organization?
I would say you don't necessarily need to be the loudest person. This is like a saying, right? But you don't necessarily need to be the loudest person in the room to be heard. So I think people often get hung up on titles and on where they sit in an organizational chart and how much decision-making capability they have. But I think if you're more focused on those things than your role within a business or an organization, then I think people often find you out. I'm quite fortunate in my role that I have the ability to build relationships with people. That's what I do, and the relationships that we have with people in our organization are phenomenal. It's like a family, in lots of ways. I don't know if you watched the Ryder Cup, D, but Luke Donald I think is a perfect example of what a good leader looks like. He's never the one saying the most. He's pretty quiet. He doesn't shout loads of crazy things. But you hear any of those golfers talk about, one of the main reasons why they won the Ryder Cup, and that was because of the work and the thousands of small decisions that Luke Donald made in the Ryder Cup that nobody will ever know about and nobody ever saw. And you can just see that, he has respect from all of those players. And I think that's what it takes as a leader is, have respect from the people around you. Not because you demand it, but because you probably earned it.
Yeah, definitely. I love that answer. And how's your golf coming along before we wrap this up?
Not very good. Not very good. I'm better off not playing golf.
We all are, don't worry. Oh, frustrating game.
I'll stick to watching football. That's what I'll do.
Oh, it depends what team you support.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we won't get into that.
yeah, we will, not today, nah. But now, El, really appreciate you joining. As always, thanks so much, and looking forward to catching up soon.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers. Thank you.
Take care.
So, guys, hope you took a lot of value from that. Like Ellis has done some incredible things.